This week, we welcome Rob Allen, Chief Product Officer at ThreatLocker, to discuss how zero trust principles prevent an AI breakout. In the leadership and communication segment, 3 cybersecurity issues that should keep every CEO awake at night. You don't find your leadership style, you mentor your way into it. Cybersecurity starts with communication, and we may be getting it all wrong. And more. Business Security Weekly starts now. It's the show where we explore the business of security to improve the security of business. Your trusted source for emerging risks, leadership, and communication. Get ready for Business Security Weekly. Welcome to Business Security Weekly. This is episode number 461, recorded August 17th, 2026. I'm your host, Matt Alderman. Joining me today is my full complement of co-hosts. It's been a little while. First,
a little bit.
Mr. Jason Albuquerque, welcome. Football's begun.
Hey, we are there. NFL preseason is in effect. I am super excited. The best time of the year is about to begin.
Yes, my Buckeyes are currently rated number 1. I don't like that because I rather them not be ranked number 1 and earn getting to number 1.
That's right.
Dang it. Anyways. Also joining today from the hot state of Texas, Mr. Ben Carr.
Hey, Matt, loving August here in Texas. We're nice and warm, and appreciate the fact that you want your Buckeyes to earn it as opposed to just giving it to them, something we don't see a lot nowadays.
I know. We get it. So I told my pastor this last weekend, I said, by the way, I went from 115 to 100, and then we're going to get to 106 today. So I might as well have just stayed in Vegas.
Yeah, it is just
true.
Just that hot.
Yes, it is. And last but not least, who is sitting upright today, Miss Summer Fowler. Yay!
Yes, I'm upright, still on recovery. I have the patch on, and it's going very well. Speaking of sports seasons, hockey mom season never ends because we schedule all summer, but hockey season, travel season starts this Friday. So we're going to be back into it.
Summer,
all right,
speaking, you can prep for a Halloween little pirate action with the patch, you know?
Well, yeah, and if you would have seen me when I first got the patch off, I don't know if I told you guys, I really looked like Rocky. And I thought, man, if it was Halloween, I could be Rocky and my husband could be Adrian, and we could have rocked some really good costumes.
Amazing.
Yeah, I'd love to see your husband in a dress, by the way. All right, one quick announcement, then we'll get into it. Threat intelligence sounds great on paper, but it's not driving decisions. It's just another cost center. Too many teams are overwhelmed with data and still can't answer what actually matters to the business. At the Threat Intelligence Virtual Cybersecurity Summit on August 26th, learn how to turn intel into prioritized risk insights and measurable outcomes. Security Weekly listeners can register for free by visiting securityweekly.com/threatintel and use the promo code CSS26-SW. I think that promo code is the same one we use every time. So if you had used it once, use it again. This segment is sponsored by ThreatLocker. To learn more, please visit securityweekly.com/ThreatLocker. Rob Allen, Chief Product Officer at ThreatLocker, is an IT professional with 3 decades of experience assisting small and medium enterprises embrace and utilize technology. Rob's background is technical, first as a system administrator, then as a technician and an engineer. His broad technical knowledge, as well as an innate understanding of customers' needs, made him a trusted advisor for hundreds of businesses across a wide variety of industries. Rob, welcome back to Business Security Weekly.
Thank you. Good to be here, Matt.
Good to see you.
I'm actually quite impressed you got the 3 decades thing right, but I'm also really sad because it makes me feel extremely old. I do get introduced at some things as 2 decades, and I'm like, yeah, that's not really right. And it is, frankly, 3 decades now at this stage, which does make me feel really old.
I have, I think, a little over a month, and it'll be officially 30 years in cyber. Yeah. Wow. I'm getting so close. Yeah. IT a little longer, but pure cyber will be 30 years, September 9th of 2026.
That's pretty impressive. That is pretty impressive.
Yeah, crazy. We're not here to talk about our history, our backgrounds, but we are here to talk about AI Breakout. We've seen some very interesting news recently about breakouts. I'd love your thoughts, Rob, on what are some of the challenges organizations are facing with their agent technologies, and how can ThreatLocker help fix some of that?
Well, I think we should probably start by sort of clarifying breakouts, because there have been obviously a number of well-documented breakouts of late, which, and again, look, I don't know how much of it is PR. I don't know how much of it is anything you can do, I can do better. I think it was definitely an element of that. I did think that the Meta announcement, which came after the other two, was really sad, and it kind of made me feel sorry for them. It was like, ours broke out too. But we're not really talking about those kind of breakouts. We're talking about basically more organizations now are under more and more pressure to facilitate these things, agentic AI, to run in their environments. But the problem is you're realistically depending on, in a lot of cases, users knowing when to click OK, go ahead, or yes, do this, and not. And the reality is that most users don't possess the ability to make those decisions. I mean, I use these things on a daily basis, and half the time I've no idea what it's doing or intending to do or going to be able to get access to if I click the button that says yes.
Rob, I thought all users who were experimenting with AI knew exactly what they were doing and the guardrails in place and the security concerns. Like, I'm amazed
fairness,
you
Ben,
would say that.
there are guardrails built in. I mean, the fact of the matter is that these things require you to click yes to do this, or to download, run this piece of PowerShell, or whatever it is it's trying to do. But again, most people don't know what it is. And the reality is the guardrails that are built in are pretty flimsy.
Yeah.
And it's just, and I have a huge amount of sympathy for security teams who are being put under pressure to allow people to use these things. And they're going, well, look, we can allow them to run, but I've no idea if user installs Claude, what it's going to download, what it's going to run, what it's going to decide is the most appropriate tool to do the task it's been presented with.
That's always part of the challenge, though, right? Is like when you're working with any system, and especially AI, right? Like you might as well replace the prompt with just press any key, because it doesn't matter. Like that's what users are going to do.
Absolutely. And it's not users' fault. I mean, even advanced users in most cases probably haven't got a clue what these things are actually doing underneath the hood. I mean, if you ever look at a process tree for something like Claude, it is terrifying. It is Claude runs, calls PowerShell, calls command prompt, calls Git, calls Bash, calls you name it. I mean, it's just absolutely going nuts on a computer. And again, it just depends on what it feels like it's the most appropriate tool for it to do the task it's been presented with.
Tools and other agents. I mean, just look at the OpenAI Hugging Face multi-stage attack path, right? I mean, it literally swarmed a whole bunch of agents and put them to work. I mean, that's what it did. So we don't know what's happening behind the scenes. And honestly, it's just trying to win the game at the end of the day.
Yeah, the AI response is usually like, do you want me to do this for you? And it's like, well, I asked you to do this anyway, so I guess, right?
I mean, the problem...
As you said, press any key would be perfectly valid.
The problem we're facing today is we're looking at security around this in the typical structured fashion that we did with access controls, where now we need to figure out how to guardrail intent and agency throughout the organization, because that's what's happening with these AI agents is now they have intent and agency. They can go figure out how to go do the task in the back end.
It's velocity, because now we're asking it to do stuff, and the velocity at which it's doing it on its own behalf, right? Like, because you're enabling it to, like, it's not requiring you to go to somebody else, and there's not a time frame to say, oh, something bad is happening, let me get in the way of that cycle. It's just happening super quick.
So, Rob, what would you recommend? So say you're a listener of this podcast, and your company has come to you and said, go forth and give AI to everyone in the company because we know it's going to make them more productive. And you're thinking, okay, what would be the first two things that you would do to prevent some of the things that we're discussing?
Well, there's a couple of things. It's actually quite interesting how the conversations have evolved over, and it's realistically, it's only like 7-8 month time frame that these conversations have taken place. Like when we spoke to customers at the very beginning about agentic AI, it was around the time of OpenClaw. And basically the question was, are we running OpenClaw on any of our machines? And because of the approach that we take to security, which is deny by default, basically, the answer was quite a simple one, which is, did you explicitly allow OpenClaw to run on any of your computers? No? Well, then it's not running. And that's the beauty about default deny. And that applies to every organization and not just things like OpenClaw, because realistically, most organizations, not everybody needs to run Claude code. Not everybody needs to run anti-gravity. So you can limit the blast radius immediately by just allowing the people that need access to these tools to have access to these tools. So that's kind of step one, to answer your question. Step two is then those people who do need access to these tools don't depend on the built-in safety rails. Don't believe that Claude is going to police itself, or don't believe that a user is going to not click on, yes, let it access my finance share, or yes, let it access all of my files and documents. Because the reality is, with access to all your files and documents, there's a hell of a lot of information there that could go very, very sideways very, very quickly. So it's really interesting how these changes, these things that are happening so quickly, basically bring us back around to the point where controls are really important. So controlling what these things can get at, controlling what data they can access outside of the built-in controls, is something that's absolutely critical. So yes, I want Claude to run, but I don't want it to be able to access my entire network. I don't want it to be able to access the entire internet. I don't want it to be able to, run any tool at once. I want to let it do what it needs to do and no more. And fortunately, that's basically something that we've been preaching for years now. It's like, yes, you need to run these tools, but no, you don't need to let them run amok within your environment.
Zero trust is clearly the future as threats get faster, quieter, and harder to detect. But implementing it shouldn't disrupt the business. ThreatLocker enforces default deny at execution in a way that remains enterprise-ready, scalable, and operationally clean. Unknown software is stopped cold, trusted apps stay contained, and drift is locked down across the environment. It's zero trust that works in real enterprises and prepares you for the threats ahead. See why CISOs are adopting it at securityweekly.com/ThreatLocker.
Yeah, I would add in there too, aside from the security risk, there's a financial risk as well. And we're starting to call it the tokenomics of all of this, right? Because at the end of the day, you have different LLMs that have different cost structures. And you may want certain folks within your organization to use the LLM that's best for them and nothing above, because it's going to cost a lot more money. Yeah. So you have to start regulating the tokenomics around all of this and really think about what you want to allow your users to be able to use. You don't want them to use the nuclear LLM that's going to, give them a $100,000 bill at the end of the month, when the baseline LLM would work perfectly fine for what they're doing, right? So there's a financial risk to all this outside of the security risk that we really need to be thinking about from the CISO perspective. Remember, we want to align with the business. We want to impress the business. Go to the CFO and have that conversation and see how things go.
Absolutely.
Well, and the other thing to think about with that financial side of it is, and I know a lot of organizations struggle with this, is getting that AI bill to actually be allocated to the cost center that's using it. Not having the AI charges be a central IT or cyber, because then you can really start looking at, did we actually get value out of the AI cost of what the marketing team used, for example, or the finance team or the engineering team? And so if you're a leader listening, I highly advocate for having that budget, broken out. It can be centrally managed, but you need to break it out so that you understand where it's being used and what value you're getting.
So Rob, as I was going through some of the blog posts in prep for this, I see a number of community policies around AI. And I saw a really interesting one, which is going to prompt my question, as I saw one for MCP. My question to you is, how do we control these at the agent, at the server, or at both, right? I think I know the answer to that, but how does MCP, Model Context Protocol, and how do you look at those from an architectural and protection perspective? You need to apply policies at both layers, don't you?
Well, first of all, an MCP server can't run, an MCP agent or server can't run on a machine unless you explicitly allow it to run. So that's one level of control that you already have. So, somebody may need an Azure MCP server, for example, then realistically, they're going to have to ask to run Azure MCP server. So that's, again, part one comes back to default deny and the fact that just not everybody can run these things. But again, over and above that, it's same principle. It's what does this thing need to talk to? What data does it need to access? Does it need to reach out to the entire internet? It's exactly the same principle, but relating to MCPs. And look, I think these things are absolutely awesome. I basically built one for ThreatLocker. There are ones for ThreatLocker that are out there that customers have built, and they're incredibly powerful. They're so useful. Just going to be able to go in and ask natural language questions about, really complex stuff that you would otherwise just be looking at, text in a web page. I think they're incredibly useful, but equally they are potentially incredibly dangerous because they can pretty much do anything they want to do. But same principle applies, which is, number one, don't let just because somebody can run an MCP server for GitHub doesn't mean that they should necessarily be able to run the MCP server for GitHub. Only the people who need that should have access to that. And as I said, it just very neatly comes back around to the conversation about default deny.
So Rob, there's a lot of black and white areas, right? Like that's kind of an easy one to think about. If you don't need to run MCP server, like just don't enable that for everybody, right? But there's a lot of other areas that are they're harder to think about, right? And so one of them is, let's say, when you're in a Teams meeting or something, being able to do transcription, right? Like that requires access to information, right? And that information could be highly sensitive, right? But the benefits that it brings to business, right? The velocity, again, that it brings to business of being able to like quickly summarize meeting information, right? Or providing access to all your Word documents, your Excel documents, right? To essentially bring context to something that would take a human a very, very long time, if at all possible, to pull together. How do you balance that? How do you figure that out on the grayer areas where, a lot of CISOs are being pressured to give access to a lot of these tools, but we wouldn't give access to a third-party consultant to say, come in and like have access to everything and we'll just ask you questions about it.
No, absolutely. And again, perfectly legitimate question. I mean, one example that I can give from our own situation is that, so for quite a few years now, we've had organizational policies around AI use, who should be able to access them, what they're supposed to. I mean, basically, you should use the paid Office 365 version of Copilot. Don't use the free version of Copilot. You're not allowed to use ChatGPT. You're not allowed to use anything else. Basically, that was pretty much the company's procedure, and everybody had to sign up for training. They went through the training, and they basically agreed to all these things. We last year brought out a web filtering product. So basically we can block access. So actually control access to these websites. So we basically put in a policy that said nobody can access ChatGPT, nobody can access Claude unless they have a paid business account for these tools. The number of people that basically kicked off and the amount of pushback that we got from putting that into place, you would not believe. I mean, I don't know what our current count, I should do because it's on my credit card, but I don't know what the current count for a number of ChatGPT licenses in the country, but it's definitely three figures. It's probably close to 150 now. So that's 150 people that realistically were probably using free versions of ChatGPT and putting God knows what into them, that at least now we've got visibility and control over because we applied that block to say, look, nobody can access this, and then work backwards from there. So I suppose we're
dealing with some challenging landscape where it's evolving very quickly too, like even on the legal side. So I saw there was an article I think I saw about a week or two ago where there was a legal judgment saying that, like, if you ask a legal question to ChatGPT or Claude, like, it's not privileged, right? And all that access is gained. So you think about the amount of information people are asking these tools that we don't know what they're asking them that could be discoverable, could be utilized in other scenarios that we're not anticipating right now, right? And
Absolutely.
The landscape is just changing so fast.
And in case anybody needs telling, Claude is not a lawyer.
Yeah.
Okay. I would have thought that would be pretty obvious. I mean, it's not privileged. They are not a lawyer. But obviously it took a judgment to...
I mean,
but it plays one on TV.
I mean, to Ben's point, I do know of law enforcement agencies that ended up coming out and saying, listen, our detectives were using public LLMs to do investigations, and they had to bring it all back. Eventually, they invested in their own internal, consolidated LLM that's inside their four walls. But at the end of the day, that could have affected some of their cases and some of their ability to
even
prosecute,
that, Jason, right? Like, they bring it in house, but again, it doesn't mean it's not.
The question is, I mean, there's so much out there that still needs to go in front of the judge, right? And get figured out, because right now the law doesn't really hold any water to this. And I think
I know
things
it's
get
going to
litigated
take,
right now,
I
right?
don't know how long to catch up, Jason,
Yeah,
but it's
exactly.
going to take a while.
And it's going to take a lot of court cases to figure this sucker out.
Right.
You know, I wanted to tether in a little bit to what Ben had mentioned, but take it to that next level. How do we handle the trusted apps gone rogue conversation, right? Because here's the thing. I mean, again, I mentioned it earlier. It's the story of OpenAI, right? It's how they asked an agent to do an impossible task. It went out and failed a whole bunch of times, but then found Artifactory within their environment. And they used Artifactory to store a message board. That message board was public to other agents. Those other agents read the message board and went and did tasks for said agent, in turn giving it SSRF access to the internet, bringing home information to that message board. So now it's starting to get the answers through all of these good agents that were doing things, all of these trusted apps and agents, but they were using it to their advantage to solve the puzzle, win the game, and it's really trusted apps and agents gone rogue. How do we solve for that?
Well, again, that's a completely other difficulty problem that needs to be solved, because again, I mean, these things, I think it's inherently in their nature to, they will cheat to solve a problem. They you know, again, we think of them as having guardrails. So leaving aside the whole agentic thing, or the pure agentic stuff and what most organizations want for them, but we think that they have guardrails. And the reality is that if a guardrail is getting in its way of fulfilling the task that it's been allowed to, or assigned to fulfill, it's it doesn't matter. It will find a way around it.
Figure out a way. I mean,
It will.
it executed. I mean, that agent executed over 17,000 automatic actions to do what it needed to do over the course of 60 hours. And I think it brought in maybe 100 plus agents to do its bidding for it. That's amazing unto itself, but on the same token, holy crap.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, equal parts amazing and holy crap.
Yeah. Could you have prevented that with a ThreatLocker policy such that you could limit its communication to Artifactory in the bulletin board to do this? Like, could you craft a policy to prevent it? I guess maybe you could if you knew what it was trying to do, but if you didn't know what it was trying to do, you'd have to like review the logs and understand what it was doing to put the controls in place.
No, not necessarily. Again, look, I don't want to be standing here going, yeah, we could have stopped that. I have no idea. Without getting into very detailed, data logs, everything, I genuinely have no idea. But in general terms, I mean, look, they say it was sandboxed. You know what I mean? Like, fundamentally, what we're talking about with ring fencing is akin to a sandbox. Now,
yeah.
I'm not going to say that in no way, shape, or form could a really advanced, frontier AI model figure out how to escape from that. I mean, I hope not, but
well,
realistically,
Rob,
I don't
wanna
know.
say
So
first,
I can't say that we would have solved that problem, but that problem was a really good illustration of where the problem or where the issue lies, which is that these
Rob,
things will find a way. And if you give them any more, or if you give them too much leniency or agency or ability to do things, they will take advantage of that.
So I appreciate you saying that, right? Because I think a lot of vendors would just step in and say, "Oh yeah, we could do that." So thank you, one, right, for having the, I guess, the morality and being able to say that. But two, that's the problem, right? That Jason's bringing up is like you don't know the bounds, right? Like you don't know all the holes, and it's going to keep going until it finds something that it can get to. And so that's the challenge for the CISO is, we're almost coming up against an adversary that isn't limited, right? Like we're human. You're limited by time, by capacity, by
ability.
Right. But it all it takes is one thing. Like it brings it back to that thing that we've always defended against, right? Is the attackers have to be right only once, where the defenders have to be right all the time. And now it's an unlimited surface that you're actually.
And now it's not only your attackers. Now it could be insider. I'll call it insider agent threat.
Yeah. It's your own. It's your own infrastructure working
at the end of the day, right?
Potentially.
That's a challenge. I mean, again, how do we start to manage and put controls and guardrails around intent and agency? Right? That's because
Well,
they
this
have
is the thing,
agency in your environment. They have intent. If they start to move away from that intent, I mean, we talked about frontier models, but let's be real here. I mean, if you look at Kimi AI, they're like 3 months behind Anthropic's frontier model, and that's open source. I mean, they're getting there, guys. I mean, they're getting there. Open source is getting there. So
Yeah, it's a bit of an arms race.
yeah.
And fundamentally, Jason, I mean, to your point about intent, I mean, intent is all that separates backup software from data exfiltration.
Yeah.
I mean, they both fundamentally do the same thing. The difference is intent. I mean, intent is the difference between, any good software and ransomware.
That's right.
You know what I mean? And again,
Yeah,
if we
and
go back to
it's intent in time, right? So to your point, like backup software, the intent is to back up, not to exfiltrate data. But at a future point, with access to that information, the intent changed and it became exfiltration, right? Yeah.
Yeah. It's something I've actually been saying for some time. Like, probably the most efficient way to exfiltrate large amounts of data from any organization is using backup software.
Yeah. Change the
Because
target. Change the
it's-
target. Boom.
Absolutely. Instead of backing up to here, backing up to back up to there instead. It's I
right.
mean, it's very unlikely to trip up any egress alarms. I mean, it's normal behavior. I mean, this program is backing stuff up to a place. But again, the only different is intent and where it's going to. But yeah, the world is a challenging place. But again, it is getting more challenging and more quickly because of these tools. And again, this is why I suppose our main argument is that, look, fundamental controls, I mean, making decisions about what these things are doing and should it be allowed to do X or should it be allowed to do Y is really hard. And I would bet it's practically impossible because of, what we discussed, which is that it will find a way.
Right.
And it feels like a bad, Jurassic Park quote, life finds a way. I mean, these things will find a way.
Yeah, I remember years ago, like, right, the pushback you'd always get from like an operations team or something when you raise a risk. It's like, yeah, what's the potential that like anyone will ever try that? Right?
Guess what?
And
It's
this is
there
kinda
now.
turned
We're
that
there.
on its head.
100% reality.
Right?
I mean, this is why all of the foundational items that we have decided not to do for the last 20 years are about to bite us in the ass.
Yeah.
Right? Because you want to know what? To your point, Ben, what's the chances? Today, absolutely 100%.
Yeah.
100%
I mean,
chance.
and here's the 3 things I heard from this conversation today. Number 1, asset inventory.
Huge.
And right, we've been horrible at this. Who's running what agents? How do we prevent those agents? All right, we got a solution
And
for
your
that.
assets
You're only
include
allowed.
data. Like, what is the data? Where is it? Right? Like,
Exactly. Right?
Right.
So having that asset inventory, being able to control which of these models can run and can't run, huge part into that inventory side. Number 2, applying appropriate controls, right? Yeah, we've been chasing things, but do we really put the right control structures in place? Right?
And controls on data governance side and controls on identity management side.
Exactly.
Because, hey, guess what?
All
Every
the
one
way
of those
around.
agents have an identity.
Exactly. But the third piece is that continuous monitoring component. We have to continually monitor these things, learn what they're doing, and then update our rule sets to try to prevent these kind of breakouts, right? And that's probably the hardest part still is the monitoring of these things because they're running 24/7. They pretty much have unlimited capacity. And how do we keep up on the monitoring side? But if we do those things and continually tweak our policies, we're in a better position. I don't know that we're 100% secure.
And Matt, just a little bit of an editorial note. Pay attention to the bill.
Yeah. I mean, I think we're also going to see the liability landscape change where, it's been like kind of a cool story, to say, hey, my agent broke out. Well, it's not going to be so cool anymore when the company is found liable for what their agent did.
Sure. Yeah. My agent
Right.
broke out and it took down a water system or an electric
Right.
grid.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, we laugh, but it's going to happen.
Yeah.
Right?
I mean, so I don't know, pick an eventuality, but somebody's going to task one of these things with doing something that will involve it being beneficial for it to shut down power for wherever it happens to be, and they will go and do that. I mean, it is coming up.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I'll tell you right now, the theme at Black Hat and DEF CON and all the briefings and the talks were, listen, the chickens are coming home to roost with all of this neglect that you've done for the last 10 years, 15 years. Now's the time. Start figuring out the basics, start doing the basics, start getting the investments in it, because you don't have much longer. We're talking a cool 3 to 6 months here, and all of a sudden we're going to start seeing AI-led attacks. It's already out there. I'm already seeing them happening already. So it's just going to get worse. And there's going to be a couple of years, 18 months to 24 months of what I've heard CISO of Anthropic say, a reckoning.
Yeah.
There's going to be a hot minute of a reckoning here happening.
Rob, thank you so much for coming back and joining us on Business Security Weekly.
Anytime, Matt.
To learn how Zero Trust can prevent your AI from breaking out, please visit securityweekly.com/ThreatLocker. Security teams are overwhelmed. In 2025, more than 48,000 vulnerabilities were disclosed, yet only a small fraction pose real risk. Most organizations remain stuck in a reactive cycle, responding to everything without the clarity to know what actually matters. Origina, a global provider of independent software support, is built on one principle: giving organizations control over their own IT roadmap, risk, and critical systems. Optus by Origina is a predictive intelligence service that brings that same approach to security, helping teams predict risk, validate what matters, and act with confidence. Visit securityweekly.com/Origina for a conversation with a security expert today. All right, great conversation. But before we get into this week's articles, one quick announcement. InfoSec World brings cybersecurity professionals together across industries, from healthcare and financial services to government and the Fortune 500. Join the community in Orlando, October 12th to 14th, for practical education, new perspectives, and cybersecurity research unveiled live. Listeners save 30% on their pass with code ISW26-SW savings by visiting securityweekly.com/InfoSec World 2026. All right. Like I said, these articles have been around for a couple of weeks. We were going to do them last week, and then we had some Black Hat interviews. And anyways, so I wanted to cover these articles, though, because there's some good stuff.
Yeah, they still all track.
They all track, right? So, yeah, exactly. So article number 1, 3 cybersecurity issues that should keep every CEO awake at night. The opening statement to me is, for years, I've been saying that cybersecurity is no longer a technology problem. It has become a business leadership challenge. 8 years and counting, Jason?
Years. Let's go decade, my man.
Third decade. Isn't that what
Oh
Rob
my
said?
God,
Third
it's
decade.
insane. Yeah, well, hey, listen, if they're catching up to us, that's okay, right? I guess
Right.
at the end of the day. But I mean, here's the thing. This is a velocity problem. I think we talked about it in the last segment a little bit, right? The velocity issue is that malactors, and now empowered by AI agents, right? Offensive agents, they don't care about the bureaucracy of the business. They don't care about the red tape that you have to go through. They don't care about the corporate complexity about getting all these approvals up the chain before you can even take it to the board, and then the board has to approve, and then they push it to the next meeting to approve, and now you're 4 months down the road, right? They don't care about that. So the lack of inertia that our business has, right, to get things done fast, I think we need to change that really quick.
Yeah.
We need
So
to
I
start
think
accelerating decision making, empower people to make decisions, delegate the smart people to be able to make decisions in a timely fashion.
I wholeheartedly agree with you, Jason. And I think one of the most important things that a leadership team can do right now is get together and have everyone write down, what do you think are the most important critical services that we have in the company right now? And see how different the answers are.
Oh, sure.
Because when they're different, that's going to mean how the heck is a CISO supposed to protect what nobody knows is most
You've got no
important?
inertia.
So
agreed.
settle on that and then do what you said. Focus in on streamlining it, like come to an agreement on say, okay, these are the most important things. This is the most important data that's supporting that, et cetera. And then get rid of all of the hurdles.
Agreed. I think one of the biggest challenges they're going to run into, because I'm seeing this happen like live fire now. What do you mean there isn't a tool to fix that? What do you mean I can't put a line item in a budget and spend $80,000 just to get that fixed and you can make me secure? No, there's no shiny tool for some of this shit at the end of the day. Guess what? We need an asset inventory. Guess what? We need to start doing configuration management. We need to invest in the technical debt. Like, there's some of these things where you just can't buy a shiny tool and make AI fix it. some of it's the hard work that we've been talking about. And that's where CISO is really going to convince, the folks with the purse strings.
Yeah, even if you come in and do a discovery assessment around this, like, okay, now what? Like, think about everything else you have to do. Like, this is also not a one and done conversation.
No.
Either.
No. And then throw in the additional, we talk about the AI risk all the time, but guess what? Let's not forget about, there's a huge supply chain complexity risk out there these days. Yep. And what are we, 3 years off of quantum hitting the streets? I mean, how many folks do you know have done a complete encryption inventory throughout their entire organization, every system for all of their vendors? Because it's not just you, it's your vendors as well. So nobody's even talking about post-quantum. And these are things that are pressures that you got to think about now, because you're not going to be able to wave a magic wand and spend $6 million in one budget to go fix all your quantum issues. Got to start thinking about it now.
Yeah. So the World Economic Forum publishes an article on the metrics organizations should track to measure their cyber resilience. Always love to see the World Economic Forum talk about cybersecurity because it gets broad coverage,
100%,
which is good.
Yeah, any type of marketing we can get on the cybersecurity side, I'll take it, right? From a positive perspective, meaning invest in it. We know it's a global issue. Yeah, I mean, the days of measuring your vulnerability counts, we know this. We've talked about this. They're done.
Oh, yeah.
They're done. Yeah. It's about what Summer said. Figure out what minimal viable business looks like.
Yeah.
If you get hit with something, what does it take to continue running this business? Yeah. So that way you're not down. What's going to have that major business impact that's going to halt you and stop you from being able to continue? That's where you start to focus and start to invest, right? But there's so much to that. There's all the hard work it takes to figure it out. Like Summer said, let's get everybody around the table. Let's figure out all the assets, figure out how to protect it. You got to start getting people bought into doing some type of tabletop exercise so you can figure out what would live fire look like. You don't want to be in the middle of it and it's your first time doing it, right? You don't want your first tabletop exercise to be real. That's not what you want. So, I mean, this is all of the do hard stuff that we haven't done. It's all
and you're not asking the business executives to roll up their sleeves and do the cyber work. You're asking them to I liked the questions at the end of this article. Are we protecting the services that matter most?
Yeah.
Well, what are the services that matter most? That is what the executive team should agree on. Right. Agree on that, and then it can go off and say, all right, now what do we need to do to protect those services? What's the minimum viable? And that doesn't involve everybody. But I think if you don't start there, you might have a cyber program that's not for built correctly for your company, even though they're doing all amazing things.
Yeah, you're not focusing on the right things, and you're probably doing a lot of bad busy.
If you're running a tabletop and the outcome of the tabletop is everybody walking away saying this went well, you had a really bad tabletop.
Right.
Like the whole intention is to try to identify the gaps and the holes and the things that you don't know, right? Like if your sales team came in and you asked them a bunch of questions and they kind of had all the answers, I think most CROs would look at that a little sideways and said, well, what aren't we seeing about this? Like, how are we going to lose this account, right? It's the same thing you need to think about from a cyber perspective. Identify the gaps and the holes. That's much better because then you can figure out like where are the problems that you need to fix.
This episode is sponsored by Microsoft Edge for Business, the browser with built-in protections for Microsoft 365 customers. With employees using AI and web apps more than ever, Edge for Business helps you stay in control, securing sensitive data, protecting against shadow AI, and stopping threats right in the browser. You don't need to worry about added extensions, new tools, or extra costs. It's the secure enterprise browser you already have, built for the era of AI. Visit securityweekly.com/edge for business to learn more.
And I really liked the discussion in this about like how fast can we make a decision in a crisis, because I think we emphasize speed sometimes on the wrong thing, right? It's not a matter of responding super quickly to a ransom that's come in. No. It's a matter of understanding that if you have a supplier that was breached, does the person that can break off your communication with that supplier have the authority to do so in a quick enough time that your organization isn't going to be impacted? That's where we need to focus the types of speed that we're looking at. And I think we kind of couch the question in a wrong way when we think about some of that speed.
Yeah. Next article, Forrester names AI agent threats the top 2026 CISO risk. What's interesting is how they position this is Forrester's list, 2026 list, shifts focus from external nation state attacks to threats enterprises may have introduced themselves by deploying personal AI agents without governance controls. Last segment, anybody?
And Matt, when you say they, do you mean Chat GPT or do you mean Copilot or because I'll tell you this one smelled of AI all day long. my AI radar went off off the rocker on this one. I mean, some of the stats in here, I'm sure they pulled from a true report.
Sure.
I mean, at the end of the day, 71% of CISOs saying that AI has deep access into their core business systems, but yeah, they may not have security controls around it. That kind of scares me a little bit.
Yeah, it scares me a lot. And obviously, we have a great relationship with the Forrester folks, so we can actually bring them in and dig into the report itself.
That would be great.
Yeah, we should try to get
good.
them to come on and dig into this a little deeper.
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
My cynic's take on this one, just really quickly, was that I think that it's not so much about the AI agents as this is revealing all of the things that we talked about that we haven't been good at: asset inventory, identity management, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Yep.
And so it's kind of a nice way to bring attention to some of the things that we need to do. But I don't know that it's the agents are exacerbating those issues.
Yes. These next two articles are kind of linked a little bit. I brought them in on the mentoring side, right? The first one, why mentoring matters more in the AI era. And then the second one, which is you don't find your leadership style, you mentor your way into it. Obviously, Jason, I was glad you were back for this one because of your mentoring system and how you've talked about it before. But why in the AI era, right? And I think this goes back to some articles we covered before about, these AI agents being your coworkers.
Sure.
Oh, no, they're not.
No, they're not, right? And at the end of the day, leaders need to make sure that they still keep that strong relationship with the folks on their team. And if you have a strong relationship with the folks on your team, you have the ability to mentor. I mean, I've gone through it myself with some folks who I mentor on our team, and it's like, listen, I can tell you used AI for this. Let's talk about what it really took to get to you, right? Let's go through the exercise of what it really takes to get the information. Because I'm seeing it everywhere. I'm seeing it in places where you can identify, wait a minute, the human element in this conversation is gone. You just sent me a report. You just sent me some findings, and I can tell. Let's talk through this and really work and exercise their brain to think through it instead of allowing a copy and paste from an AI, to give you the outcome. So it's a ton of mentoring. It's a ton of just sitting down with folks saying, listen, it's a great tool. Use it like a tool, but don't use it as your crutch.
Right.
You can't be doing that, right? Because it will erode our ability to learn and have, reverse engineering skills and be able to really have that critical thinking. It will start to erode that. It'll create some level of laziness if we don't get in front of it. Honestly, I truly feel that way. And it's up to us as leaders to get in front of that at every
Yeah. And the second article kind of brings a concept of that in, right? That you can't teach what you don't actually understand, right? The AI is not going to necessarily teach you that either, right? But mentoring and understanding and then going to learn it yourself is a huge part, right? These tools have advantages. They also have their limitations.
Like empathy. At the end of the day, they're not going to hand you something that is empathetic, right? They're going to hand you what logically may make sense, but when you take it and you try to execute against it, it's like, hold on, you can't do that or send that, or like you have to do the timeout thing and say, wait a minute, picture yourself on the receiving end of this. How would you feel?
Yeah.
Right? So you got to bring the human element back in and use that as the filter. Because if not, our communications are going to lack empathy. They're going to lack understanding. They're going to lack the context that you need within a business environment or to a partner or to a client. And that's going to erode relationships. You're going to start losing trust.
Yeah. And we're still trying to build trust with these AI systems.
Yeah.
So we don't want to erode trust with the human element
That's
Yeah.
right.
still in the mix, right?
Right.
Well, you've got a foundational layer of people that are coming into the workforce that aren't going to have that same interaction with people they've had before,
Yeah.
right? And
You're right.
they're not going to understand how to do this.
Right.
Yeah. Look, I see it in the hiring side
Yeah.
of this already, right? Where AI is the crutch to get in the door. But then
Yeah.
you see all the other skills that are lacking in this kind of next generation of new
Sure,
hires.
sure.
It's a little scary.
It is, and I mean now compile it on top of where we are today in organizations. I see so many folks leveraging Teams or Zoom chat or stuff like that to try to get business done. And I've instituted this 3 message back and forth, then get on a call, because I've seen so much bad busy happen where you try to negotiate something across a chat and you're spending
that's
4
right.
hours going back and forth. Where literally I'm like, get on a call, and within 5 minutes they had an answer. What's the compound that now? Because now we're starting to separate socially from our ability to have conversations and negotiate and have good conversations about what a solution and an outcome can be. Now take the unempathetic AI communications that you're going to copy and paste, stick in a chat, and you're going to be going back and forth for 2 days trying to figure out a problem.
Yeah, but you've got a slice of new employees who haven't had those personal
I
conversations.
know, and
They
that's-
only communicated over text.
That's the
right?
challenge, right?
They sit next to each other on a couch.
Mhm.
And they talk to each other over text.
Right. And let me tell you, instituting that rule is not easy.
Yeah.
Because I still see these message grenades happening all the time. And you have to just, as a leader, you have to insert yourself and say, let's get on a call.
Right now, with Tanium, IT and security teams complete patching programs in minutes, not weeks. Reduce software vulnerabilities by up to 97%. Cut incident response times by up to 99%. This is not just IT, this is autonomous IT. Making business, your business, unstoppable. Tanium, autonomous IT, unstoppable business. See more at securityweekly.com/Tanium.
I think one of the other ways as you're mentoring people, or even as you're thinking yourself, think about the things that you have not liked, and you have when you have encountered someone who is not empathetic with you, and use that in your toolkit as something you don't want to be. So not just looking at, I want to be like that person. Some of my biggest lessons have been seeing someone, and even though it was very successful for them, to say, I don't want to be like that.
Yeah.
I don't want to do that. So I'm choosing a different path to try to also succeed, but in a different way.
Yeah.
And if you think through that, I think having that discussion is important to say, what have you seen that you would not want to emulate, that you would not want to do? And that can be really powerful for people to think about and say, and it also can help break a cycle, because sometimes we don't even recognize it. Until you say it out loud.
Yeah, no, true. And the one thing I would say is you have to be intentional about it, because at the end of the day, we're all busy and we're all running 1,000 miles an hour.
Yeah.
And if us as leaders are not being intentional about having those moments where you can actually mentor and do these things and insert yourself and teach some good lessons and get people on a phone when you see they're going down this rabbit hole back and forth for an hour and a half, right? We have to be intentional. Don't just ignore it. Put the time in, because if not, it's just going to get out of control and it's become that beast that you didn't want to have to deal with later. So we got to be intentional with how we're including ourselves in the middle of those conversations and or mentorship opportunities.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that kind of leads into this last article. Cybersecurity starts with communication, and we may be getting it wrong.
Yeah.
This is a really interesting study. And as I started to read it, I'm like, oh my gosh, like we're all kind of part of this, right?
Yeah.
So what they did is they took how we talk about cybersecurity more in a figurative perspective and said, well, what does that mean from a literal description? And what do people understand better? And the results are not unsurprising that those who read the literal descriptions achieved significantly higher comprehension than participants exposed to the figurative versions, right?
Yeah.
And the reports attached, there's some really interesting numbers off of this. But because we use a lot of figurative language in cybersecurity, That's why people struggle understanding the concerns, the risks, the comprehension of it, because we don't spend the time to really help them more on the literal side of this and how it impacts them. I just found this to be a really interesting study and article.
Yeah. I mean, it happens in a lot of different industries where IT, for example, is the same way. We love creating our own exclusive vocabulary.
Yes.
Because it's our vocabulary and it shows how smart we are and it shows how talented we are and the knowledge base we have in that theory or in that world. And you just end up confusing the hell out of everybody else around you when you're in a business, right?
Right.
I've seen it with mechanical engineers. I've seen it with chemical engineers. They speak their own language. But we've been talking about this for a long time. We need to translate back to the business, right? And that's what leaders need to do. And that's what leaders need to teach their teams to do. Translate back to the business. Yes, we can have our own exclusive vocabulary and be the cool kids on the side. But when we're speaking to the business, we have to speak the language of the business.
Yep. This also applies to why security awareness training probably also doesn't work.
Yeah.
Right? We take the same concept, we throw these same figurative the language descriptions into training, and we wonder why it doesn't stick.
Yeah.
We're just perpetuating the issue.
100%. You know, but then the other side of this, I look at it from a different side of the aisle. We can't strip away the sense of urgency around some of these things. We can't oversimplify things. Otherwise, the business won't feel the sense of urgency around it.
Right.
We have to communicate in the language of the business, but continue to have the risk conversation, sense of urgency conversation, business resilience conversation. We can't stop that. Just translate it to the business.
Yeah.
I think that we haven't done a good enough job, though, in cybersecurity of getting to the basics of, like, for example, when there's a medical emergency, you dial 911 or you do chest compressions if they're not conscious, right? We've gotten rid
ABC,
of that.
right? Yeah.
ABC, stop, drop, and roll. You know, we all thought we were going to be on fire when we were kids a lot because we all remember stop, drop, and roll. But we don't really have that. And I think I've said this like several months ago. We don't really have that in cybersecurity yet, where we have taken the entire discipline like they have in the medical community and brought it down to basics of CPR. And if I think that would be so powerful if we could pull down okay, here's what you do in the emergency, because it would give us a leg up on at least getting started on that resiliency and response.
Cut the cord and power down.
There you go. Just shut it off. Hang up the phone. You're talking to a hacker, okay? Like, disconnect your computer, whatever. Yes.
Yeah.
But we need our own number now.
Cutesy for this. I'm going to do it.
I know you are. You're the one who does that. So
got to be 404. That's what we should make it, right?
Oh yeah, exactly. Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome.
I love it.
Actually, it's perfect. 404. Anyways, always a pleasure, you three. Thank you for joining me today. Thank you everyone for watching and listening. We'll see you next week on Business Security Weekly. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this content and would like to find more, see what the rest of the Security Weekly network has to offer. Visit securityweekly.com/subscribe to find all of our shows and the latest episodes. Hope to see you on a future episode.